This is Reading Explained, where, as always, I preemptively explain to you one of the readings that you'll hear at Mass on Sunday. So by the time you get there, you no longer have to worry about trying to figure out what it means on the spot. Now, this Sunday is the 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time, and the first reading from the first book of Kings is a story about the prophet Elijah. I want to point out that last week we did talk about the prophet Elijah because last week we celebrated the transfiguration of the Lord, and he appeared with Moses alongside Jesus on the top of the mountain. So it is the same prophet Elijah. However, obviously, we are now rewinding time hundreds of years back to when he actually lived. That's when this story is from. So, just like some of our other stories and just like some of our other readings, you're only going to hear a small little portion of it. But in order to be able to understand what it means, it's imperative that you hear what was happening leading up to that story. No need to worry though, that's why I'm here, I got your back. Here's what you need to know. The prophet Elijah was a prophet of God, and at the time when he was living, a lot of the Israelites were falling away from God. They were worshiping these false idols and worshiping these false gods, and one of those gods that they were worshiping was called Baal, spelled B-A-A-L. You may or may not have heard of that before, seen it before. I encourage you to do a little bit more research. But so here is the prophet Elijah, and he's seeing that these worship places, these places of worship for God, were being destroyed, and God's prophets were being killed. So Elijah goes in Galilee one day and kills all of the prophets of Baal. Now, the king at the time was named King Ahab, and he was married to this woman named Jezebel. Now, Jezebel worshipped Baal. So she wasn't very happy with Elijah, needless to say, and sends a messenger to go tell him that she's about to have him killed for what he just did. So what does Elijah do? He runs, and he runs as far away and as fast as he possibly can, and he goes all the way to this place called Beersheba, which is really far, by the way, especially on foot. So he's hiding in the wilderness in Beersheba, and he comes upon this tree. So he lays down under the tree, and he starts to pray to God to just kill him. Because Elijah knows Jezebel's coming, she's sending her people, she's gonna have him killed anyway. So he's like, just get it over with. Well, he falls asleep while he's laying under that tree, and this is where things get interesting. An angel appears to Elijah, and he wakes him up, and he says, Elijah, go eat the food and the drink that were left for you here. So he looks, and there's a full cake and a drink waiting for him in the wilderness. So he eats it, and he drinks the drink, and he lays back down, and he falls back asleep. Well, the angel comes back, and the angel wakes him up again and says, Elijah, go eat the food and drink the drink that were left for you, because you're going to need it. You're going on a long journey. So he does. He eats the food, he drinks the drink, and he ends up embarking on this 40-day and 40-night journey that takes him all the way to Mount Horeb. You think you may not know what Mount Horeb is, but it turns out you actually do. Mount Horeb also goes by the name Mount Sinai. Now, just to remind you, Mount Sinai is where Moses went and spoke to the Lord. So he gets all the way to Mount Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai, and he finds this cave to seek shelter in. And when Elijah gets in the shelter, in the cave, God says to him, Elijah, why are you here? And so Elijah goes, well, your people have entirely abandoned this covenant. They're destroying all the altars that were built for you, and they're killing all of your prophets. In fact, they've killed all of your prophets. I'm the only one left standing, and they're about to kill me too. That's where our reading on Sunday begins. So here's what it says. A reading from the first book of Kings. At the mountain of God, Horeb, Elijah came to a cave where he took shelter. Then the Lord said to him, go outside and stand on the mountain before the Lord. The Lord will be passing by. A strong and heavy wind was rending the mountains and crushing rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. After the fire, there was a tiny whispering sound. When he heard this, Elijah hid his face with his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. The word of the Lord. So, a couple things. Why did he cover his face with the cloak? Well, the reason he did that was because back in ancient times, it was believed that you couldn't see God face to face and live. So you might be able to hear him, you might be able to talk to him, but you can't see him face to face and survive that. So that's why he hid his face with his cloak first. I know the reading ends there. The story obviously doesn't. I encourage you to go read the first book of Kings. He ends up going out and the Lord ends up giving him some pretty specific details on what to do with the situation at hand. So it's fascinating. But hopefully that helps you understand this reading a little bit better and you feel a little bit more prepared for Sunday. If that's the case, please share this with someone else that might also find this to be helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to me, follow me, like the video, comment on it, whatever you like. And most importantly, don't forget to come back next week as we break down one of the readings from the 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time. I will see you then.